Good morning, everybody. Thank you for your introduction. And I hope this, okay, it doesn't fall off the table. This is good. Okay. Okay, and I'll walk you through some introductory slides on just some figures and numbers on migration in Europe as a basis for the workshops. So, it took me like a week to get the data together, so that's why I think it's quite challenging to wrap it up within a couple of minutes only. So let's piece of the European Union, and what you see is that the red bars have the biggest decreases in their populations are usually in Central and Eastern Europe. If we go to the next chart, this is Eastern European countries that remained quite homogeneous. So there the share of foreign-born population is somewhere in the area of 5% of total population and below that. The red bars representing the natural change. This number is decreasing, while the blue bar representing the migration balance is increasing. So population growth in the EU, or population change in the EU as a whole, depends more and more on immigration. Where do the migrants come from? We have a standard mix of immigrants coming from the EU countries themselves. So these are typically labor migrants crossing the borders and moving abroad to find a better job. Then we have the non-EU immigrants. Those are the ones that we are always speaking about, but also the immigrants that come from the Balkans or from Russia and Ukraine. And then we have the own nationals. So these are basically people who return to their countries of birth. And you can see that those numbers are also quite significant. So we have three categories of immigrants. These are, by the way, not netted numbers. So these are only the immigrants and not the emigrants, meaning that the immigrants are not subtracted. So we only count here in this overview to the populations as a whole. That's the red line. You can see that, for example, the number of migrants that came to Austria in 2015 is actually, percentage-wise, the third highest in the EU. So that's also something to consider. By the number or by the percentage of immigrants from non-EU countries, and you can see it's Italy, Slovenia, Denmark, Sweden, Spain, Austria, Bulgaria. So those are typically the countries where most of the migrants arrived in the first instance. Composition 2016 of the asylum seekers, so these are not the typical labor migrants who come from Eastern Europe, but the composition of non-EU migrants who were seeking asylum in the EU. I think we can just jump over that. What is interesting is the little chart on the right-hand side, and it shows that that in recent years, the number of migrants from migration, and that's why the increase percentage-wise is so high in Austria. You're first of all exposed right at the crossing of the Balkan migration route. So many people enter. Here I have one more chart showing that so recently it was the Syrians, Afghans, Hungarian literacy and educational attainment of migrants. There's not too much information, to be very honest, so I really had to dig. proportions of highly educated and people with lower skills. And if you look at the profile of immigrants to the EU,